So UFC 308 takes place this weekend, and in the main event, we have Ilia Topuria versus Max Holloway for that featherweight strap. Now, for this video today, I'm going to break down the entire fight and tell you guys who I think is going to win this matchup. Now, when this fight first came up, I was pretty on edge. I had no idea who I was going to pick here. I was going back and forth. I saw the reasons for Holloway. I saw the reasons for Topuria. And so I had to do a little film on stream, live streams down below. I go live every single day of October. I'm live tomorrow if you're watching this video. I'm probably live right now if you're watching this video. But when it came to this fight, I simply just didn't know who to pick. And when I watched the film and I watched Topuria versus Volk back, I didn't realize how good Topuria really is. Like, I knew he was good. I knew he was an amazing fighter. I knew he had power. I knew he had great boxing. And I knew all of these things, but I never really hyper-analyzed it like how I did for this research. And the main takeaway that I had from watching that Topuria versus Volk fight was that Topuria was doing really, really good. Like, when people watch that fight in hindsight, they say, well, you know, Volk was outlanding him. Volk was schooling Topuria for the first 2 rounds, then he got KO'd. It really wasn't like that. Topuria was out there giving Volk hell. And one of the main things that Volk is really good at in fights is really establishing his jab. And Topuria was getting hit by the jab, but he was also slipping it quite consistently. Most of the time, Volk's jab just carries him in fights. When he fought Brian Ortega, when he fought Max Holloway, when he fought TKZ, his jab was just absolute money, and it felt like he could never miss with that jab. But Topuria was out there slipping the jab, parrying it. He was making sure that Volk couldn't really ever truly get going with that jab. Now, Volk was landing more low kicks than Topuria, and that's how Volk was able to win the rounds versus Topuria. But if you look at the way Topuria was striking in that fight, he was catching Volk clean a lot of the time with power punches, and the only reason he lost those rounds was because of Volk's low kicks. If Volk wasn't landing so many low kicks, it would have been rounds for Topuria, in my opinion. But nevertheless, Topuria still found the KO. I know watching that fight back, I knew a KO was coming. But if I didn't know a KO was coming, I sure as hell would have felt it watching that fight as intensely as I was. It just felt like Topuria was going to KO Volk one way or another because he was landing really clean shots. And what he was doing to land those clean shots was, a lot of the time, I think Volk has very, very sloppy backward movement. Whenever he's trying to escape the pocket or transition out and use his footwork to get out of range, he usually leaves his chin up in the air. And what Topuria was doing was that he was stepping through and kind of catching Volk at the end of his punches. Now, that was one of Topuria's main ways of landing on Volk's chin. And I think he can do the same thing to Holloway here. Max Holloway is not a back-footed fighter. He's never really been a back-footed fighter because he can't really get away with that style. When you have short arms like Holloway, it's just hard to fight on the back foot. So for the majority of Holloway's fights, he's always had to be the one pressuring forward and be the one landing the shots and fighting in the phone booth and fighting in the pocket. And he's always been good at boxing. That's how he's been able to win fights, is by being able to trade better than his other opponents and be able to outland and make good reads. Because one thing that Holloway does very well is that when he is in the pocket, he knows what to throw. He knows what to look out for. And that's how he KO'd Gaethje, because when it comes to fighting in the phone booth, Max Holloway, I think, does it better than anybody. But when it comes to Topuria, that's a way, way bigger risk than fighting Gaethje. I'm sorry. Topuria, when it comes to power, I know Gaethje has a lot of power, but that Gaethje, I think, nowadays is not as crisp in the pocket like how Topuria will be. Now, Topuria won't mainly fight in the pocket. He'll pick his shots. He'll feint his way in. And maybe that's how Holloway will win this fight, is by being able to do more work inside the pocket whenever Topuria does come in. I see Topuria being the one pressuring Holloway backwards. Now, obviously, Holloway won't go backwards too much. He'll make sure to stand his ground. But I think if one's pressing on the action, I think it will be Topuria for the most part. We saw Holloway do the same thing versus Gaethje. He can pressure whenever he needs to, but he more so likes to stay neutral at the worst. We're never going to see Holloway on the back foot landing low kicks like how Volk will, because his reach just doesn't do him any justice. He's going to at least stay neutral and only back up when he needs to. And if that's the case for Holloway, he's not as busy as Volk, right? The reason why Volk was able to win rounds 1 against Topuria was because he was so busy with the low kicks and with the jab. Holloway just is not going to be as busy with the low kicks, right? I mean, the only reason Holloway ever really made an effort to use low kicks in his fight was because Volk was always chewing up his legs and theirs. So Holloway just naturally, he's not the best when it comes to just landing low kicks outright. Low kicks are more of a thing that he's added to his game. He never really was an established low kicker. And so when it comes to the rounds, I think they're going to be a lot closer than how Volk was able to clearly outland Topuria. I think if Holloway does outland Topuria, it's by maybe 2 or 3 strikes at best. I think the fight's going to be very, very close round by round, and it's going to be determined by who landed the better shots. Now, that's kind of the big deal for me as well, because if they're going to be fairly even on strikes every single round, I think Topuria probably gets it done by decision, right? Because one thing about Holloway is that he's never had power, and that might sound crazy now because he's KO'd 2 of his last 3 opponents. But the last 2 opponents he KO'd were Gaethje and TKZ. Gaethje agreed to go in the center of the cage and stand out and bang it for the last 10 seconds and got KO'd for it. And TKZ came out, I believe, in the 3rd round and went all for broke and just bum rushed Holloway until he eventually got countered with the overhand right and KO'd. So Holloway is really only getting KOs because fighters are actively risking and taking that chance to get KO'd, right? TKZ knew he might get KO'd, but he said, fuck it anyways. I want to go out there and possibly get this dub because I'm down, I believe, 3 rounds already. And when it came to Gaethje, he was just thinking, okay, final 10 seconds, let's just bang it out for a fun fight. BMF belt, it is what it is. Gets KO'd for it. It happens. Not really, but it sucks for Gaethje. But it's not like Holloway's out here just embarrassing guys and killing him in the 1st round like he has some insane power. He's never been a power guy throughout his career. At one point, we called him pillow-fisted Holloway. I mean, when he fought Calvin Kattar, he couldn't ever really knock him down too effectively. So it just seems like Holloway, if it comes down to who's going to land the better strikes in a round, I'm going to bet on the power of Topuria to get that done. And if this fight's going to be mainly in the pocket type fight, I have to look at who has the better head movement. And back to the Topuria versus Volk fight, Topuria showed really amazing head movement with avoiding the jab. And when it comes to Holloway, he has had very little throughout his entire career. That man doesn't move his head a ton, and he gets hit a lot in his fights. When he fought Yair, got hit a ton. When he fought Arnold Allen, got hit a ton in the pocket. Every single time he fought Volk, he was getting hit clean on the chin a lot of the time, and we know this with Holloway. He's always relied on having an amazing chin to carry him through fights. He's always relied on being able to take your best punch and then to keep coming forward and keep outlanding you with his pace. That's always been the style of Holloway, and I don't know, with the way he's kind of changed in the Gaethje fight, if he's going to stick to that game plan of trying to outpace Holloway. So for this fight, I'm banking on seeing a more patient Holloway as opposed to the pace heavy, walk you down, make you gas out Holloway with a bunch of output. And if he is fighting like that, like how he did against Gaethje, I do think he's going to get outstruck and possibly knocked down and possibly chinned by Topuria. At some point in his career, Holloway's going to get chinned, and I don't want to see that ever in my life. I want to be long and gone. Hopefully Holloway never gets chinned ever, but I think at some point in his career, he takes so many shots, so many clean punches. Overall, his chin has been absolutely amazing his entire UFC career. It's got to crack at some point, man. And will it be Topuria? Maybe. I'm not going to bet on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if Topuria cracked his chin for the first time. If there was going to be a fighter at featherweight who could put Holloway out unconscious, it would be Topuria. It surely is a risky one, but I think we're going to see Topuria at least knock down Holloway one time. Just the way Holloway fights and the way Topuria feints his way on the inside, feints his way to land a 1-2. If he misses and he catches you backing up, he'll step through and land another shot on you. He knows how to catch you when you're ever backing out of the pocket. And I think Topuria was able to catch Volk at least, I think, 3 or 4 times in that first round. He caught Volk backing up, trying to escape the pocket. And again, Volk leaves his chin up in the air to get hit all the time. And Holloway can be hit the exact same way. I think at one point, Gaethje stepped through to land a shot on Holloway as he was circling out and landed pretty clean on his chin. Holloway is susceptible to being hit quite consistently. He always has been. Now, the Yair fight was a bit unorthodox for him. Yair throws a lot of kicks, a lot of low kicks. I mean, overall, Holloway has never really had too great of low kick defense. That's how Volk was able to chew him up a lot in his fights, because Holloway can't defend a damn low kick, and Yair pretty much exposed that Yair pretty much took advantage of that in their fights. And one thing I do think is underrated about Topuria is his low kicks. His low kicks are actually pretty solid. When it comes to Topuria, people mainly see his boxing, his boxing is absolutely amazing. But what goes unnoticed is his grappling, his wrestling can be very, very effective as well. And his low kicks aren't bad. Like, they really are actually solid. When he fought Volk, I know I'm referencing the Volk fight a lot, but you get a lot of information from the Volk fight. He was landing hard, like, I mean hard low kicks on Volk. Whenever the thing about Topuria is that he doesn't throw a lot of low kicks, but when he does throw one, it's powerful and it's hard. It's kind of like how Rakic is. Rakic will throw more low kicks, obviously, than Topuria, but Rakic always just blasts as hard as he can a low kick right into you. He's trying to really damage your legs. And it's kind of the same thing for Topuria. It's pretty sparingly most of the time, but when he does throw one, it's a hard thudding low kick. So I don't see Holloway going out there and winning the low kick battle. I think at the very, very least, it's going to be even and possibly in favor of Topuria. And that might sound crazy because Topuria has amazing boxing, but I'm telling you, Topuria has really good low kicks. I think we're also going to see Topuria be the one to go first in this fight. He'll be the one to start the exchanges. Maybe Holloway can find ways to outland him in those moments, but I am scared that we're going to see Holloway or Topuria land a nice power shot on the chin of Holloway, and then it might be a little bit iffy for him because Holloway recently, man, like he's a great chin, but sometimes nowadays it looks like he's starting to get hurt a little bit now. When he fought Gaethje, got hurt by Gaethje, more so off balance, but it definitely did rock him for a second. And it seems like Holloway nowadays isn't just eating the punches like super easily and just keep pressing on forward. No, it seems like now he's starting to film a little bit. Now he's starting to actually get a little bit concussed from these shots, or maybe get a little bit wobbly or off balance now for Holloway. It's not as just he just Vittori eats them for breakfast and then keeps walking forward. No, Holloway, I think, is now starting to feel these shots more than he ever did. So if Holloway's going to be the one that's not going first and they're fighting in the phone booth when Holloway has little to no head movement and his low kicks aren't as good as Volk and he won't have as much output as Volk, I don't see Max Holloway winning this fight. Now, what I don't think is that Topuria should be a minus 245 favorite. I think it should be like a little bit over like minus 145, 150 for in favor of Topuria. It should be a little bit closer in odds at the very least, because Holloway does have a chance to go out there and maybe we do see the high output, the high paced Holloway, and he goes out there and he finds a way to maybe gas out Topuria in that 4th and 5th round and put it on him and maybe TKO him, or maybe just win a decision based on the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. That could be possible for Holloway as well. So, but getting on to that point, I think this fight's going to go something like this. We're going to see Topuria land some great power shots on Holloway. We're going to see him land clean, amazing blows and be the one landing the better shots in the first 3 rounds of the fight. Then when it comes to the 4th and 5th round, again, the first 3 rounds are going to be extremely close, but I think Topuria does edge them out. But in the 4th and 5th round, we're probably going to see Holloway pick up the pace, land some more combinations. At this point in the 4th and 5th round, Topuria's power is probably kind of dwindling. He's not gassing out, I would say, but he's not as powerful as he was in the first 2 or 3 rounds. And we're going to see Holloway possibly win the 4th and 5th round, but it's just not enough to secure himself the belt, and he loses based on the first 3 rounds to Topuria. People will be calling robbery. We're going to see a bunch of Holloway fans get angry. I honestly think this will be a similar reaction to, I believe, the second Holloway fight against Volk, where people were up in arms saying that he got robbed. But I think the reaction to this fight is going to be the exact same as that reaction to when Volk beat Holloway in their second fight or in their rematch, which is kind of my prediction. So if you didn't understand that, my prediction is Topuria by decision based on the first 3 rounds. It's a tough fight for me to predict, man. It's a tough one to really research for because both of these guys do what they do very well. They both have their style and they're very, very effective with it. But I think Topuria is a bit more clean, a bit more powerful, and I'm worried about how Holloway's going to do with his head movement inside the pocket versus Topuria. And one thing I did forget to mention is that Topuria has really good grappling. Maybe it might be a bit unexpected, but we might see Topuria go for a takedown. Now, I don't think he will, but I think Topuria cares more about being champion than having an ego on him. Now, he has a massive ego, and I think he's really intelligent with the way he's dealing with this whole fight or hyping up this whole fight. But for every single fight that Topuria does, he pretty much risks being called an absolute clown. He says all of the most confident, most egotistical things leading up to a fight. And if he does get KO'd by Holloway or loses to Holloway, there will be so many TikTok edits and people clowning on him in the comment section of any social media you can think of. But Back to the whole grappling thing. Sorry, I went on a tangent there. I don't think Holloway will ever expect a takedown. So maybe if he is beating Topuria, we might see Topuria go for a little takedown grappling exchange, and maybe he might get it on Holloway. And that can definitely be a method of victory for Topuria. I won't go too in depth on that because I don't really see it happening. But again, it is an avenue for Topuria if he really, really needs it, which I don't think he will need for this fight. Possibly he could, but my odds say it won't. But that is my official prediction for this video. I will be taking Ilia Topuria to defeat Max Holloway and retain his belt at UFC 308. Again, I'm going live every single day of October. We have about 10 days left, or maybe 9 days when this video does come out. So make sure you guys stop by at least one time and say hi to me in one of my live streams. But if you enjoyed this video, or maybe you agree or disagree with my take, leave me a comment down below, like, subscribe, bell icon for notifications, but I'll see y'all later. Peace.